there, this is Jill Rumley with StudioDoorz, and this morning we are visiting Julia Bright's studio in Boulder, Colorado. We wanted to take you inside a studio this morning and give you a first-hand view on what it's like to visit an artist studio in person, because that's what StudioDoorz does. And Julia Bright was kind enough to let us come live this morning. All right, so let me get you going here, and I'll turn this around and we'll get you in focus. There we go.
Hi, Jill. I'm very glad to be part of this program, actually, because for us artists, no matter how many paintings we post online and no matter how beautiful the photos of the paintings are, there is really nothing like seeing the paintings in person, getting up close and personal with the art and with the artists, talking to them about why they paint, what they paint, and learning a little bit more about who they are and about their materials and how they do their art. So we'll take you around the studio in a minute, but I wanted to tell you about myself a little bit and my art career. I got started doing oil paintings about 20 plus years ago. I won't date myself. But I started doing still lifes, and the more I did still lifes, the more I loved it. I studied with a great painter named David LaFell, who lives in Taos, and he did a lot in terms of bringing up my skills and teaching me how to see as an artist, actually. But during COVID, I started longing for the ocean, and living in landlocked Colorado, the only way I could get to the ocean during COVID was to paint it. And so I started painting seascapes and then started painting landscapes, because I noticed all these stories during COVID about how dolphins were coming back to Venice because there was not all this traffic, and started thinking about how we, are losing our natural environment. And I thought that there's nothing better I could do in terms of preserving our landscape than to, depict it on canvas. And so I kind of got a little bit away from still lives and into landscapes and seascapes, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. But let me show you around my studio a little bit. And actually, now that I've said I'm painting landscapes, my latest painting is a still life. And part of the process is the fact that I was looking through my I was looking through my old artwork and found a painting that was similar to this that was sold. And I wanted to do a similar setup and see if my skills have improved. And so I did almost the same setup, and I feel like I have improved, but I don't know. Art is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. So moving on, that's my setup, and that's my painting, but actually the orchids, poor guys, had to go, so this is kind of some fake flowers to make it look pretty for the camera. And here you see some seascapes that I've done recently of all different subjects. Anything from Capri to just a wave. And these things sometimes come out of my imagination, and sometimes I use photos. But recently I went to Mexico after I got vaccinated and did a lot of painting on location there. So some of these come from, just a la prima painting, and some come from my imagination. So these are some of the landscapes that I have been doing. And let's see. And here, yeah.
I love those. I grew up at the
you.
ocean, and I hear ya. I
Yeah.
look at your paintings and I just think of home, even though this is my home too.
Yes, I love the water and the beach and the ocean, just the myriad of colors that you can get out of, people look at the ocean and they just see blue, but there are millions of variations from turquoise to emerald to dark purple to, all kinds of amazing colors that you can see just in water. And I think if one really sits down and takes time to look at the landscape or at the water, you will start seeing so many different colors and so many different shapes. And as artists, we just want to put it all down on canvas. So so that's the kind of thing that you don't get on Instagram really, but you do get in terms of talking to the artists and visiting their studios. You can see, for example, this is one of my little bit older works from a couple of years ago. And in this work, I was absolutely drawn by the color. This whole work is about color and light, and about how light hits the watermelon and produces these amazing, beautiful cast shadows, and just the juiciness of the watermelon and the composition really makes you go from left to right, just like the eye reads, and to notice color and to notice the light. And then in this painting, I was just struck by the fog that came over in the early morning over the scene. And painting fog almost like a sfumato in the old Italian Renaissance paintings it took some doing, because I've never done that before. And I think I was successful here. And then some snow scenes with light coming through the trees. I love doing that, and standing there in the freezing cold with a hat and gloves on.
With your paint like freezing up and not flowing because it's so cold out. I know.
Exactly. And then there's a little portrait that I did actually years ago from a model during the times when we actually could have models. And, beings are just such an interesting subject, and you can catch so many colors as just one side of the face. So that was a fascinating thing to me. That's it.
Yeah, we're good. No,
Okay.
keep going, keep going.
Okay.
I was waving at people saying hi. People are
nice,
joining in.
Nice. And this particular painting was actually done at the animal sanctuary. I don't know if you guys are all familiar with that. But standing over on the bridge overlooking all this wildlife at sunset, what struck me is just the redness of the landscape, how the sun turned absolutely everything, even green bushes, red. And so I needed to paint the red. If you notice in my paintings, I sort of have a predilection for red, like in this still life and in the watermelons. I love that color, and the human eye really notices that color, and so it is red is something that I absolutely love.
You have red pillows too. Yeah. Wow. Well, I find it so amazing that you go from still life to painting oceans, which has so much movement and action, and you have captured it beautifully. I mean, I've only seen your work up until this point on Instagram.
Right.
And
it's not the same, right? It's just
your photography is great. I'll give you that. But wow, I mean, to see them in person and to see them to scale is you see them in a little square on Instagram or a little on your computer screen, but you're standing next to this painting, and it's 2 feet by 3 feet, or 16 by 24 or whatever, and it's large. It's actually larger than you expect, and the colors just come through, and they just, I feel like especially on this one, this is just one of my favorites.
Which one is that?
This one, the one that's just the wave.
The wave, yeah.
The
wave with the seaweed.
And like I said, I grew up at the beach, and I feel like I'm standing in the water about to be,
Yes.
about to
Swallow
dive
it.
into this wave. It's so, it's just got so much movement.
And this painting
color.
actually resulted from me being in Mexico just 3 weeks ago, honestly, and there was seaweed. There's a lot of seaweed on the beach in Mexico these days.
I think that's a Pacific Ocean thing too.
Yeah. They say it's because of pollution and the algae growing, and I don't know exactly, but I really was there. I was standing in the ocean, chest deep in water. And I was, just looking at all the different colors and the seaweed floating in the water, and how the water, made the seaweed in focus and then out of focus, and how the sky was barely blue from that vantage point. And, that's what I remembered when I opened my eyes and looked at a blank canvas in my studio a couple of weeks later. That's what I remembered. And so it came out of my memory of Mexico.
Wow. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It just...
Yeah. And then, for practice also, I do some watercolors as well. So just, little studies that actually serve as studies for my future oil paintings. So,
Oh, those are beautiful.
thank you so much. So some of these, and then there's something super whimsical
Oh,
like that.
that is
Where's just a bunch of different stuff thrown together.
That's like very illustrative,
Yeah,
It's,
exactly.
Oh, wow.
I was actually thinking of this as, for a greeting card or something.
I
but don't know.
could see it as an apron, or
Yeah,
as table or on plates. I could
or,
see
or
that.
wrapping paper or
Yes.
whatever.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then some ocean stuff. And then I was fascinated one time by Japanese paintings. And
Oh,
so
look at that.
I was
Wow.
totally crazy about,
Now, are those done with ink, or is that done with
No,
that was
it's
watercolor?
it's all watercolor.
Okay,
It
yeah.
really is all watercolor.
No, and
So-
watercolor is a very different painting process than oil.
It really is. And I would say it's actually the opposite of oil, because in oil, you start with darks and you layer on lighter and lighter colors, culminating in, almost, well, I never use pure white on any of my paintings, but culminating in the brightest highlights, as on the still life. And in watercolor, you reserve your white. So you start, you really start with a white paper, and then you kind of layer on darks, unless you're using gouache or something.
Yeah.
And watercolor actually is also very difficult to control. You kind of, they're, if you're experienced, they're happy accidents, I think, that happen that make the work beautiful. But it takes a lot of study and work and preparation and skill to do well in watercolor. But I do feel like my strength is oil.
Well, I definitely think your watercolors are beautiful as well. And
Thank you.
I as an oil painter, I can definitely appreciate the challenges going from back and forth, because with oils is a little more forgiving.
Yes,
You
I
can
agree.
correct those mistakes and fine tune the lines a little bit. Like, oh, I need to bring that edge. With watercolor, what you got is what you got.
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
can layer and everything,
Yeah.
but if you mess up the white, unless, like you said, you're using gouache and going over the watercolor with the
Right.
white gouache,
Yeah.
that's a no-no.
But I also feel that oil is actually sometimes more difficult. And it's exactly for the reason that you said.
Yes.
Since oil is very forgiving and you can fix your mistakes, when you're finished with a painting, your mistakes are absolutely glaring and evident on the canvas. And the fact that you haven't fixed them when you could. So if someone with a discerning eye is looking at an oil painting, and I'm talking about realism now, I really don't know anything about abstract painting. So that's something that's a completely different area of expertise. But you know, in realistic impressionistic paintings, sometimes mistakes can be so glaring, and you know, they show every single flaw. And so I keep thinking about that as I finish a painting, that you know, that it's not finished until I say it's finished. And it's very interesting to go back and look at your old work, because you can see so easily what mistakes were made. But the good thing is you can fix it.
Even years later, it's like,
Right.
why did I do that? Okay, I'm just gonna. But well, and that's true. And matching colors can be a little bit challenging once it's been a few years on a painting.
Yeah. But you know, I think an experienced oil painter can always match a color.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, for example, you know, I have greens in, you know, in my arsenal, because as artists we go crazy and we go and we buy a bunch of colors. But I actually have a very set colors that I use on my palette, and green in any form is not part of it, because you can mix probably a million different greens with just, you know, red, yellow, and blue that you have. And so you know, so as an experienced artist, you can go back to a work and you can match something exactly, because you know exactly what goes into that color.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have you do have your palette
I have
out.
my palette right here. Yeah.
I'd love to take a look at that.
Yes, absolutely. So as far as colors I laid out, and I just bought this tube actually because someone recommended that they like this color, never used it.
Which one is that?
It's chromium oxide.
Oh, chromium oxide. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've never used that, but you can see, you know, on my colors, I actually do not have any greens at all.
Oh, I see lots of beautiful, lush reds and.
Yeah, and I have a white, of course, and black, but I always put my colors out on the palette. When I paint, they go across the left and up to the top, and so I lay them out in order. So there's ochre, Naples yellow, lemon yellow, medium cadmium yellow, and dark cadmium yellow. And then I don't have that because I scrape my palette when I'm done, and I put the colors on the side.
So this is glass.
So this is glass palette that I scrape with just a glass scraper.
That works so well.
Yeah,
I was
works-
really happy when somebody gave me
Yes,
that tip.
it works really well. And then I have cadmium red medium. That's all really I use. The other colors are sort of, you know, in addition to if I'm painting an unusual
That looks like
subject.
alizarin. Is that alizarin?
Yeah,
right there?
and then alizarin. I never use that. I was trying to use it on the still life and didn't work at all. But I do use this cobalt teal all the time for my seascapes and actually for my still lives as well.
It's a nice blue. That's a really
Yeah,
nice
and
blue.
then ivory black, and then I use burnt umber and raw umber, phthalo blue,
Yeah.
and ultramarine. Those are all my colors. And all the rest of these colors are all made by mixing them.
And so all those colors can make that.
Yeah, absolutely. It can make any color,
And it
even
can-
like almost a fluorescent color.
I mean, even those beautiful seascapes, and it's really amazing that, you know, with such a, you know, I would say a limited palette, you know, that your work is just so diverse and rich and realistic.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you. Yeah. And another thing I want to say about colors, in case there are artists out there watching and they're curious, you know, about saving colors. So what I do actually is the colors that are on my palette, I gather them up kind of with a knife like this, and I mix them all up. And all of those colors make the most beautiful grays. So, for example, this color, you know, kind of an earthy brown gray and a blue-green gray, you know, we're all made from just mixing all the leftover colors on the palette together.
Oh, wow.
And then I gather them up and I put them to the side, and then I use them over and over again in my paintings. So nothing is wasted, really. And I can show you how I do that because they develop like a little skin. So
yeah, on the top.
I just go over here and I take the skin off of the painting, and then, you know, whatever is left here,
Yeah, it's all
I just,
ready
you know,
to go.
and then I put it on the palette and it's ready to go.
And that's so wonderful because it's made from all of the other colors.
Yeah,
The
it's very harmonious.
Yeah, it works with, you know, the colors you're using in the painting. So I know there's a term for that, and harmonious is a good one. And
Yeah.
oh, that's
there's
another
synergy.
portrait sneaking in the back there. Look at that.
Right, that's my husband actually. I did that
Oh.
portrait probably about 20 years ago.
Oh, that's fantastic.
When we were
I
all
love
young.
it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, is there anything else? I'm fiddling with the things here. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I just like to say that I am so excited to be part of this because, you know, if you're interested at all in art and want to see a little bit closer, you know, in terms of what artists are doing, what they're thinking, how they go through their process, we don't bite. We actually love to talk to people, or at least I do. I know there are some artists that are very introverted and that's torture for them, but I'm actually a people person as opposed to, you know, and I love my studio time too, don't get me wrong, but I love to talk to people. So come by the studio, look at the works. You're not obligated to buy anything, but if you want to, of course, I'll be happy to sell you a painting. And, you know, happy, and it's also a way for people, I feel like, to get to know their community, to get involved in their community, and to see what people are doing. People are doing amazing, incredible, creative things, maybe right next door to you. So come visit.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm going to see if I can turn this around. Maybe. There we go. Right there. Hi, it's me again. Well, thank you so much, Julia Bright, for inviting us into your studio this morning. And I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us live today. I'm standing underneath a fan. It might be a little noisy. And I just wanted to also let everyone know that StudioDoorz has kicked off a Kickstarter campaign actually this morning. And our goal is to try to get 1,000 artists registered on our site by the end of 2021. And so we have lots of big plans coming up with the studio listings, including organizing with open studios and art districts around the country. We can honestly say we're now coast to coast because we now have an artist in Massachusetts and an artist in Washington State, including California and Colorado, Oregon, New Mexico, and Arizona. So if you're interested in learning more about StudioDoorz, you can always visit our website at StudioDoorz.com. You can direct message us here on Instagram, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions for you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. Bye.